It was just past 2 in the morning when our convoy left the main highway and slipped into the Appalachian dark, rain sliding down in cold, unbroken sheets. The 2-lane road ahead seemed swallowed by forest, the branches leaning close enough to brush the roof of the Humvee as we crawled through. 2 trucks in front and behind, 1 LMTV in the middle, 8 of us total, a lean recovery detail running blind through mist and silence. I rode shotgun in the lead vehicle, headset tight against my ears, eyes fixed on the mile markers glinting in the headlights. Counting them under my breath kept the rhythm steady, a small ritual to keep time when every second felt stretched thin. The radio murmured now and then, that soft, throat-clearing squelch between transmissions that sounded more alive than the static itself. Through the cracked window came the smell of wet leaves and diesel, sharp and heavy. Our task was supposed to be simple: retrieve an M1 Abrams, reported stolen from the 278th Armored Cavalry's motor pool, outside Kings Court before midnight. 60 tons of armor lifted out of a guarded base without setting off alarms. The story already didn't add up. The route command gave us didn't run toward any highway or depot. It cut the opposite direction, deep into coal country, into the forgotten veins of old mines where signals died and maps got vague. That was the first sign this wasn't a routine job. I remember the call coming in just after dusk, while I was halfway through maintenance checks back on base. The duty sergeant didn't bother with explanation, just told me to grab my kit and fall in. The captain briefed us on site: a tank missing between 210 and 220 hours, security feed cut by a power surge, gate log blank, GPS and transponders removed. Whoever took it had inside knowledge. They'd even stolen a heavy lowboy trailer from a nearby depot, the kind rated to carry that kind of load. That meant logistics, manpower, timing. This wasn't kids joyriding with a deuce and a half. This was organized. The captain didn't say it, but we all saw it in his face. Law enforcement had already been notified, but our orders came under a joint recovery tasking. 2 Humvees, 1 LMTV, loaded with tow rigs and jacks, 4 of us active, 4 from the guard, standard small arms only, strict no engagement rules. Recover, report, and get out. Outside the wire, a front was pushing through the ridges, mist curling low and fast over the valleys. Appalachia doesn't go quiet, it hums. Even the silence feels layered, like the mountains themselves breathe between storms. But that night, everything felt sealed off. The air was thick enough to taste. As we rolled south, the radio's occasional squelch started coming at strange intervals, clicking twice, then once, like someone keying the mic without speaking. I tried not to think about it. Focus stayed on the markers, each one a heartbeat, through fog and rain. Haynes drove beside me, expression flat, hands steady on the wheel. He was one of those soldiers who carried calm like a weapon. 3 tours behind him, no illusions left. Behind us, the LNTV groaned under the weight of gear. Chains, winches, block sets, portable lights, and the EOD tech assigned to us just in case the stolen vehicle had been rigged. It sounded excessive at the time, but command was cautious. Anything stolen from a motor pool might come back trapped. On the last radio check before signal faded, command repeated our standing rule: no shots unless fired upon. We were on U.S. soil, which meant red tape mattered more than instinct. By midnight, we'd crossed into what the old topo maps labeled as RG line. Narrow roads cut by rail spurs and decommissioned mines. The tree line thickened overhead, a tunnel of dripping branches swallowing our lights. The tires hissed against soaked pavement, and the smell of wet earth rose heavier than before, almost metallic. When the rain lightened, the fog grew dense enough to dull the beams of the headlights. I cracked the window again, hoping the cold would keep me sharp. That mix of rain, diesel, and old vegetation was suffocating, like the air inside a sealed hangar after a long exercise. We reached a crossroads where the GPS froze. The digital map showed nothing but black grid. The local topographic overlay marked a dead-end service road once used for coal shipments. The captain's voice came over the net, clipped, no room for debate. Check that route. It didn't make sense. Anyone trying to disappear with 60 tons of steel would head toward an interstate, not deeper into mountains. Still, orders were orders. We switched to NVG mode, the world washing green and grainy, shadows moving where none should. The road narrowed to gravel. The LMTV behind us slowed to a crawl, tires churning mud. I kept counting grid squares aloud, the rhythm keeping my nerves in check. Then the radio gave one clean click, sharp, empty, and fell quiet. It's strange how fast silence becomes a sound of its own. The absence of that faint electronic pulse made the air feel wrong. When we finally reached the site, A rusted sign leaned half buried in the mud. Mine Access Road 3. The lettering was ghosted with rust, but visible in the glow. The smell of wet rot and diesel hit harder than ever. Thick, stagnant, familiar from old motor pools, but older somehow. Stale. We stopped at the junction. The rain eased to a mist. I stepped out, boots sinking into soft mud. The cold cut deep, biting through my gloves. Somewhere beyond the tray line, water dripped from a high ridge like a clock ticking in the dark. I listened for engines, for any sign of life, but the only sound was that endless, patient rain. Keynes leaned out, scanning the ridges with NVG. "Tracks," he said quietly. I followed his beam. In the mud ahead, 2 deep ruts carved a path through the brush. Wide spacing, heavy axle load, fresh. The kind only a lowboy could make. Whoever took the Abrams had driven this exact road. My stomach tightened. Every sign pointed one way, into the mines. We regrouped, checked comms. Static. Too deep in the ridges for signal bounce. The captain gave one last order before the line dropped. "Continue reconnaissance until sunrise, or confirmation of the tank's route. 0230 hours. I saw the darkest tom flies and killed the lowboy trail." Counting each number felt like breathing through the dark. The headlights turned the fog into white walls ahead of us, the kind you could almost reach out and touch. Behind, the LMTV's engine roared low, exhaling that same endless diesel breath that had followed us since the highway. The radio squelch popped twice. Soft, deliberate, human, and then silence again. Haynes and I looked at each other. Neither spoke. The pattern wasn't random. The road ahead wound into a black hollow, gravel turning to dirt, trees closing in tighter with every turn. Somewhere in that dark, 60 tons of armor had disappeared without a trace, and something told me we were already closer to it than we should have been. By the time we reached the abandoned coal spur, the rain had hardened into a curtain that blurred everything beyond the windshield. The road beneath us had dissolved into slick gravel, tires kicking mud. The rain circled, and the tires of the wall, the gleam of the black door, the shatters of the painting right were on the scene of a silver where the wall was broken. And Wednesday we reached the windshield with a steam light stream. Headlights carved narrow tunnels through the mist, glancing off pieces of rusted rail that jutted out of the brush like bones. No one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of engines and the rain drumming on steel. Every sense told us we were driving deeper into a place that wanted to stay forgotten. When the convoy stopped near a rusted sign marked Mine Access Road 3, I stepped out first. The cold air burned as it hit my lungs, sharp and wet, and the smell of leaf mold hung thick as smoke. Diesel still lingered too, like the valley itself exhaled it. I scanned the tree line, listening for anything beyond our idling trucks. Nothing but the hiss of rain and the whisper of water sliding off pine needles. Then, as if on cue, the radio crackled once. Just a clean, solitary click, and went dead again. We gathered around the hood of the Humvee, tracing our route under the beam of a flashlight. The map showed a lattice of mining roads that twisted through hollows and ridgelines, some collapsing, some still navigable. Half of them didn't exist on the GPS overlay. That's what made Appalachia a nightmare for tracking. Roads older than the system built to find them. Command had mentioned intelligence about a crew operating in eastern Tennessee, ex-military, selling off surplus equipment through black channels. At the time, it sounded like a rumor meant to justify the mission. Standing there in that rain, it didn't sound so far-fetched anymore. Whoever moved that tank knew how to disappear, and these hills gave them every advantage. The road widened near an old loading yard, concrete pads cracked by weeds, and half-buried conveyors stretching like skeletons into the mud. The place looked dead, but the ground told a different story. I crouched near a set of tracks glistening with rain, deep, defined, clean edges untouched by moss or runoff. Fresh tread marks, identical in width to an Abrams. Vargas, our EOD tech, knelt beside me and nodded. "Tank pads," he said. The pattern was perfect, no mistaking it. They'd offloaded the vehicle here. The realization sent a shiver through me, not from fear, but from the clarity of it. We weren't chasing a ghost story. We were standing on the path it took. Peens and I checked the nearby control shed, its corrugated walls rattling in the wind. Inside, it smelled of old oil and dust, empty shelves, torn binders, stripped wiring. But under the window sat a cigarette butt, still dry, untouched by rain. Someone had been there less than an hour ago. I didn't say anything, just pocketed it. Knowing proof meant little if nobody wanted it. Back outside, the team leader tried calling command again. Static swallowed every word. We were too deep in the ridges for even emergency bands to reach. Protocol said we continue reconnaissance until first light or confirmation of the target's route, so we kept moving. The trucks rolled forward another mile, engines grumbling low as the train narrowed into a twisting passage hemmed by cliffs and dripping brush. The rain tapered to a drizzle, the fog thickening in its place. Our lights sliced through it, turning the air white and dense. I watched the LMTV's silhouette blur behind us, its diesel breath spilling into the dark like exhaust from something alive. The radio squelched twice in quick rhythm, and this time Haynes looked up. "You hear that?" he asked. I nodded. It wasn't one of us keying in. The spacing was off. 2 quick clicks, pause, then silence, like a signal waiting for reply. We drove on, saying nothing. The road finally ended in a wide turn circle swallowed by mud and gravel, and ahead yawned a dark mouth cut into the hillside, a mine entrance. Wooden timbers framed it like ribs, a heavy chain draped across the opening. The links were old but recently moved, scraped clean where rust should have been. Mud pooled around them, tinted faintly with oil, diesel runoff. Vargas crouched, scooped a sample, and sniffed. "Fresh," he said quietly. My flashlight beam swept over the tunnel mouth, and the dark inside seemed to push back. The beam vanished after a few feet, swallowed by black. The air that came out was colder than the rain. Not just damp, dead air, heavy and stale. Haynes muttered, "If they hit it anywhere, it's in there." We decided to hold position until sunrise. The mine was too unstable to enter blind. We parked the trucks in a loose ring, kept the lights low, and set a rotation for watch. I took first shift. Sitting in the cab with the rain tapping on the roof, I listened to the engines idling in rhythm. That faint background hum that feels safe until you notice how small it sounds against open dark. The forest around us was still. No birds, no movement, just the constant drip of water and the occasional groan of settling metal. At some point, through the white noise of rain, the radio gave one soft click, not static, just that click. It felt like someone gently tapping the glass beside my ear. I waited, expecting follow-up transmission, but it never came. Just silence again, thick and weaving. When dawn crept in, the fog was so dense it looked solid, like smoke suspended over the valley. The mine entrance, pale and colorless in the weak light, looked smaller, but no less ominous. The rain had stopped, leaving a sheen over everything. We formed up around the Humvee's herd, rifles slung low, boots caked in mud. The captain's last recorded instruction echoed in my head: recover, not engage. But standing there staring at that tunnel, every instinct screamed that recovery had ended the second we found those tracks. Haynes handed me a fresh magazine and said, "You first." I nodded, switched on my headlamp, and stepped toward the dark that waited to swallow the beam whole. Haynes and I advanced first, flashlights sweeping through the mine's mouth, while the others kept perimeter. The entrance swallowed sound as soon as we stepped inside, like the rock itself absorbed every breath. The beam from my light cut maybe 15 yards before dissolving into shadow, revealing slick walls reinforced by timber braces dark with age. Water dripped steadily from above, each drop echoing like a clock in the dark. The mud beneath us sucked at our boots. The air was heavier inside, cold enough to sting the lungs. The smell hit fast, diesel and wet decay, concentrated and stale. I keyed my mic, voice low, entrance clear so far. The response came as one short squelch click, no voice, just that dry mechanical pulse that made the hair rise on my arms. We moved deeper, 10 more yards, the ground sloping downward slightly. Then I saw them, prints in the mud, not ours. Smaller, flatter, soft-soled shoes. Civilian. Someone had been coming and going through here recently. The realization changed everything. This wasn't an abandoned shaft. It was active. We backed out slow to report. Vargas, crouched near a pile of steel sheets stacked by the wall, motioned us over. He ran a glove along the edge. Air, A. There was no rust, no dust. The realization settled like lead in my chest. Someone had been cutting and shaping armor here recently, maybe hours before we arrived. Scattered welding rods lay in the mud, their ends charred and still smelling of flux. Whoever was working here wasn't salvaging, they were building. We split to search the yard downhill from the tunnel. 100 meters below the slope, the LMTV crew found a generator half buried in mud. The casing was new, the fuel drum beside it half empty and labeled red-dye diesel, the off-road type used in armor vehicles. I ran a hand along the generator housing. It was still warm. Whatever they were running, it hadn't been long since shut down. The pieces were starting to align. Armor plates, fuel, fresh welding, and a missing tank. Haynes called out, He'd found something in the ditch behind the drum. A single track link, bent but intact. Abrams pattern. He tossed it to me, and I turned it over in my hands, the stamped serial faint but visible. Proof. I logged the grid manually, another number to count. Counting always helped steady my breathing when logic failed to. The captain's voice came faint over the net, almost buried in static. Do not enter deeper. Await backup. Hold perimeter. Then nothing. No return signal. No confirmation. We were too far in, too shielded by the ridges for clear transmission. We set motion sensors near the mine mouth. We had the perimeter of trip flares around the vehicles and rotated guard shifts while daylight faded behind the fog. The temperature dropped with evening. Mist rolled down the valley in ribbons, weaving between the trucks like smoke. By 1700 hours, the world had gone gray, soundless except for the whisper of water and that faint, unpredictable click on the radio that kept slipping into my headset. Not timed, not patterned, almost like breathing. We were tired, but no one dared relax. Then it came, a distant vibration, low and metallic. Not thunder, not wind, a machine sound. It settled, Weston fractured, and centered. The old musk of 6 fire away from the table was a capped CPC death. We climbed the ridge overlooking the next valley, boots sliding on the wet clay. The fog below rippled with movement, faint outlines shifting between trees. Through the NVG haze, I caught sight of something massive, gliding between trunks. At first I thought construction equipment, a dozer maybe, but then the silhouette sharpened. A turret. My pulse spiked. The shape was wrong for an Abrams. Shorter, flatter, with a rough outline like stripped armor plating welded over something older. The sound that followed was unmistakable. A tank engine running low, deliberate, steady. No lights, no markings. It rolled through the fog and vanished beyond the ridge, leaving only that slow mechanical heartbeat behind. I keyed my mic. Visual contact. Armored silhouette moving west. Valley route. Static answered. Then one long squall chilled open. 2 seconds of dead air before cutting out. Haynes and I exchanged a look. He didn't have to say anything. We both knew what it meant. There was more than one. Maybe an entire column hidden in these hills. We returned to the trucks in silence. Rain misting again as darkness settled. No one spoke during dinner rations. Nobody mentioned the figure in the valley. We just sat listening to the drizzle and that tiny soft tick of radio squelch, repeating every few minutes, the mechanical pulse of something that didn't belong in the wilderness. When my shift ended near midnight, I lay back in the Humvee, eyes on the roof, counting the clicks through my headset just to stay awake. Somewhere outside, fog thickened over the mine mouth, and beneath that shroud of cold air, something metal shifted in the dark. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Haynes swore he heard it too, clanging deep underground, like steel plates moving. But when we checked the flares at dawn, not one had been tripped. Whatever was inside hadn't left. The mine still breathed out diesel and rot, the smell steady, patient, alive. By noon the following day, backup was still hours out, and the valley had gone dead quiet beneath the fog. Command ordered us to hold position, but none of us could ignore what we'd seen moving in the ridgeline the night before. Waiting meant letting whoever was out there regroup. The captain gave reluctant clearance for a limited recon inside the mine. No deeper than necessary, confirmed the vehicle, pull data, get out. Haynes, Vargas, and I took point. The others stayed topside, keeping perimeter and comms. The tunnel narrowed fast, timber braces leaning inward as if the whole place had been exhaling for years. The ground sloped downward, the air turning colder and denser with each step. After 30 yards, the entrance light vanished completely behind us. We switched to NVGs, our rifles raised, breath loud inside our headsets. The walls were slick, veins of cords catching faint reflections from our lamps. On the right, I noticed chalk marks, numbers scrawled quick and rough, fresh enough that dust hadn't settled. 42, 44, 45, I read softly. Then they stopped. Someone had been mapping or cataloging something here, and recently. The tunnel widened without warning into a large chamber where our lights found it, a half-dismantled tank hull sitting on wooden blocks, the lower body of an Abrams, stripped bare, no turret, no engine deck, no tracks. The metal was scorched, torch cut. Around it lay stacks of crates, spare track pads, and racks of armor plates leaning against the wall. Whoever was here had turned this mine into a workshop. Vargas went first, sweeping for wires or charges. Nothing, just scattered tools, a welding mask still hanging from a hook, and a generator humming low in the corner, its exhaust bleeding into the air like a slow leak. The smell of diesel was so thick it stung the back of my throat. The air had weight, hot from trapped exhaust and stale heat. I reached over and cut the generator. The silence afterward was like pressure, absolute. Dripping water became the only rhythm left. Then we heard it, a faint metallic scrape, echoing from deeper in the mine, steady and slow, like a chain dragged across concrete. Haynes glanced at me, jaw tight. I nodded, motioned forward. We followed the sound another 20 yards until the tunnel forked, one path climbing upward, the other sloping down into a dim orange glow. Reflections shimmered on the wet rock, flickering like firelight. My radio crackled, 3 short squelch bursts, then dead. No voice. We pushed toward the glow. Around the bend, light flooded our vision. Halogen lamps rigged to a generator, cables snaking across the floor. Under those lamps sat another tank. This one was intact, the turret mounted, the engine idling low, its exhaust breathing heat through the chamber. The stolen Abrams. Even before I saw the serial plate, I knew it. The air trembled with the low growl of its powertrain. The back panels were open, wiring and diagnostic cables spilling out, leading to a laptop on a workbench. The software still running on screen, military-grade maintenance interface. Authorized use only. My gut turned cold. Someone with clearance had given them access. I moved closer, flashlight sweeping over the panels. The engine coughed once, then steadied, hydraulic whine faint under the hum. They're working on it, Vargas muttered. Not stripping, prepping. He was right. Whoever operated it hadn't abandoned the job. They'd stepped out mid-process. Haynes climbed onto the fender, wiping grime from the serial plate. It's ours, he said flatly. I keyed my mic, visual confirmation on target, requesting instruction, but all I got was a hiss of open air. The squelch stayed live, then faded. Vargas started pulling cables, trying to disable ignition, when a heavy clang erupted behind us. We spun, beams slicing across empty walls. Nothing moved. Then another sound, deeper, like a door slamming shut further down. The air shifted. You could feel it, pressure dropping as ventilation cut off. Someone had sealed the outer gate. The lights flickered, shadows leaping against the walls. They know we're here, Haynes whispered. We fell back to the main chamber, boots echoing off stone. The faint glow from the tunnel mouth was gone. A steel gate now spanned the entrance, chains looped and padlocked from outside. I tried every frequency. Dead. Switched to shortwave. Nothing. Only one faint click of squelch, soft and final. We set a defensive perimeter around the stripped hull. Rifle steady. Oxygen monitors green but dropping. The air was getting stale. Vargas checked the meters. Safe for now, not for long if the pump stayed off. We waited in that half-dark, the only sound our own breathing. Hours passed before the dragging chain returned, slower this time, deliberate, like someone moving machinery by hand. It echoed through the tunnels, metallic heartbeat growing and fading, growing again. I watched my watch tick past 1900. Backup overdue. No signal, no exit. Sealed underground with a running tank and someone who knew how to trap us there. I started counting grid squares in my head again, whispering numbers to stay calm, each one like a heartbeat against the silence. Then the sound beneath us changed, a deeper vibration, mechanical, coming from below the floor itself. The stripped hull trembled on its blocks. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Haynes crouched, pressing his palm to the ground. There's another level, he said, below us. His voice barely carried, but in that moment, the truth hit hard. Whatever operation this was, it went deeper than we thought, literally. I moved my light toward the back wall and saw it, a metal plate half buried under crates, welded at the edges but freshly cut at one corner. We dragged the debris aside. Vargas pried at the seam with a crowbar until the edge groaned open, exhaling a breath of air so cold and thick with diesel that it burned the throat. Beneath was a ramp sloping downward into darkness, walls lined with concrete, cables running along the edges, not natural, reinforced. Someone had carved an entire lower floor under the mountain. The mechanical hum rising through that shaft matched the vibration under our boots, a living pulse of engines somewhere deep below. Haynes looked at me. Orders? He asked. I didn't answer. Every instinct screamed to pull back, but the gate behind us was sealed, and the clock was running. I checked the mag in my rifle, reclipped the flashlight to my vest, and said quietly, short recon in and out. Then we started down the ramp, one step at a time, into the sound of machines breathing in the dark. We descended the ramp slowly, rifles tight against our shoulders, boats scraping over concrete slick with condensation. The deeper we went, the louder the mechanical hum grew, until it vibrated through the air like the heartbeat of something buried alive. The walls were reinforced, poured concrete instead of carved rock, the kind you only see in secured facilities. Cables snaked along the edges, feeding clusters of lights that flickered with each power fluctuation. At the bottom of the ramp, the passage opened into a cavernous room, lined with floodlights and a single massive generator pulsing in rhythmic waves. In the center stood another Abrams, our missing tank, fully assembled, engine idling, turret pointed toward a rail platform that extended into darkness. Beside it sat a flat car loaded with armor plates and track links. The generator's heat made the air shimmer, thick with the stench of diesel and ozone. Vargas moved first, scanning wires and terminals. "They're not scrapping it," he said under his breath. "They're programming it." The laptop on the workbench mirrored the same diagnostic interface we'd seen above. Someone was rewriting the control protocols. The implications twisted in my gut. This wasn't theft, it was modification. An operation, not a crime. The tunnel behind the platform extended west, the faint gleam of rail running through it, perfectly aligned. If the line was active, they could move a tank through these mountains unseen. Haynes stepped toward the far wall and froze. There's more. Behind a curtain of welding tarps stood another hull, smaller, older, something built from spliced models, turret ring replaced, armor patch welded in uneven layers. It looked like a hybrid, a Frankenstein machine built from decades of surplus. The walls around it were plastered with maps, photos, and schematics. Rail yards, depots, highways, red circles marked routes across multiple states, connecting National Guard storage sites to abandoned freight lines. Whatever this was, it wasn't local. It was systemic. I snapped photos, each flash bouncing off the wet concrete, and counted as I went. 1, 2, 3. Each shot like a pulse in the dark. Then we heard movement above. Footsteps on metal grating. Faint but deliberate. Someone was up there, sealing the exits or watching. The lights dimmed, flickered, and steadied again. I keyed the mic. Possible contact above, requesting immediate extraction. Static replied, followed by a soft squelch in a voice. Not command, not familiar. Hold position, not authorized. Then silence. The phrasing was wrong. No call sign, no verification. Whoever spoke had our frequency. Haynes's voice came low. "We're not alone." Before I could answer, bright white light burst from the far end of the tunnel, floods snapping on one after another until the chamber was washed in glare. I saw them then, 3 figures near the rail spur, silhouettes against the light, one holding a rifle. No uniforms, no insignia. The nearest one shouted something lost in echo. Vargas raised his weapon but held fire. The generator spiked, and every bulb went dead at once. Darkness collapsed around us. The tank engine rumbled louder, alive and aware, the sound pressing against the walls. I switched to NVGs, green haze flickering through static interference. The figures had vanished. Only the echo of metal boots scraping concrete, quick and precise, like trained movement. Vargas sprinted for the generator, trying to kill the power before the Abrams could engage. Haynes covered him while I swept the far tunnel with my beam. The noise built to a steady roar, the tank's systems cycling. Then a voice came from the dark, calm, measured, close. "You shouldn't be here." Not shouted, spoken like truth. American accent, controlled tone. I aimed toward the sound. "Identify yourself," I called. No reply, just the echo bouncing back. The engine revved once, then steadied. Whoever was controlling it knew the system inside out. Vargas yanked the breakers, and the lights died completely. Total black. For a long second, nothing but our breathing. Then somewhere deeper in the tunnels, a smaller engine turned over, hydraulics hissing as chains rattled. Something else was moving. We fell back toward the ramp, eyes locked on the Abrams, its exhaust casting a faint orange glow against the floor. A shape darted through that glow, someone carrying a duffel, sprinting for the rail tunnel. Haynes raised his rifle, finger tight on the trigger, but the rules held him back. "No clear shot," he muttered. The runner disappeared into the dark. We regrouped at the ramp base, the air thick with fuel and heat. Vargas climbed the back deck of the tank, pulling the ignition cables free, then severed the fuel line. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. Silence crashed down like a wave. The air burned with the stench of diesel and melted rubber. I could feel it coating my hands, my tongue, my thoughts. Haynes turned his head toward the darkness above us, whispering, "They sealed us in once. They'll do it again." I nodded. The only way out now was through. Halfway up the ramp, our flashlights caught movement, small, sharp glints of light ahead. For a moment I thought it was daylight leaking through the cracks of the gate. Then the glow shifted and aimed straight toward us, a single flashlight beam hovering motionless at the top. "Friendly, identify," I shouted, rifle rising to my shoulder. The beam didn't move. Then it blinked twice. Short, long, short. Every soldier recognizes that pattern, our blackout signal. Except no one outside our own unit should have known it. Keynes whispered, "They've got our codes." Before we could react, the light cut out, and a metallic rattle followed, the unmistakable sound of a bolt sliding into place. The gate above slammed shut, chains clanked tight, sealing us in once more. The squelch in my headset clicked softly. Then a voice came through, flat and mechanical. "Do not pursue. Hold position until retrieval." Then silence. No call sign, no clearance phrase, just static fading like breath. I turned to Haynes. "That wasn't command." He nodded once, grim. Vargas whispered, "Then who the hell is using our frequency?" There wasn't an answer that didn't feel wrong. We backed into the chamber again, the strip tank looming in the dark like a corpse under tarp. The more I looked, the more I noticed. Faint stencils along its panels, numbers and depot codes from bases scattered across different states. None of it matched. This wasn't one tank, it was pieces from many. A patchwork of stolen steel brought here for assembly. On the workbench, folders lay stacked beside the laptop. I opened one. Fake purchase orders, transport manifests, rail permits under shell company names, all signed and stamped like official freight. Another listed shipments routed through decommissioned rail lines. One scheduled for the following week. Destination blacked out. 12 folders total, each stamped with a red mark. We photographed everything. I counted each as I packed them. 1 through 12, each count steadier than the last, a way to keep my pulse from racing. Then the air changed. A low tremor rolled through the floor as the generator upstairs rumbled back to life. The ventilation fans kicked, pushing thick diesel smoke down the tunnels. The smell was overpowering, choking. The stripped hull vibrated again. The sound below us returned, a deep, rhythmic pulse of engines buried under stone. I keyed the mic one more time, desperate for any signal. All I got was that familiar click, slow, deliberate, repeating every 10 seconds like a clock. Someone was counting with me. Haynes tightened his grip on his rifle, jaw clenched. "They're still down there," he said. The radio clicked again. 10 seconds later, another. Not random, patterned, coordinated. Whoever was running this network wasn't gone. They were watching, timing every move. Vargas checked the oxygen meter. Numbers dropping faster now. "We'll suffocate if we wait." He wasn't exaggerating. The air had gone heavy, heat radiating from below, the diesel haze turning the tunnel into a furnace. The longer we stayed, the worse it would get. I gave the order, "We're blowing the gate." Vargas nodded, pulling his breaching kit from his pack. He wired a small charge to the padlock chain, enough to cut it, not collapse the frame. We moved in silence, flashlights dimmed, each step measured. 52 steps to the first landing, 80 to the top. I counted under my breath the entire way. Counting was the only thing that kept me focused. At the gate, faint daylight leaked through the seams. Not sealed all the way, luck on our side for once. Vargas set the charge, stepped back, whispered, "Ready." The pop was sharp, clean, and the chain snapped. We forced the gate open, hinges screaming. A gust of cold air rushed in, pure and sharp. I'd never been more grateful for wind. Outside, the mine yard looked different. The LMTV was gone. So was the second Humvee. Only our lead truck remained, stripped of its comms mount. Tracks in the mud told the rest of the story. Vehicles towed out recently, chains dragging behind. No signs of a fight, no blood, just absence. Keynes swept his rifle across the ridge. "Movement," he said. I followed his gaze. Figures stood at the tree line. 3, maybe 4. Motionless silhouettes watching us through the fog. No insignia, no lights, their faces covered by hoods or masks. They didn't fire, they didn't move. They just watched. Haynes whispered, "Not militia. Look at their stance." I saw it too. Controlled posture, disciplined, military. Before we could act, the radio crackled again. A clear voice this time, calm and precise. "Recovery team, stand down. Site secured. Exit the area." Our frequency, our encryption, but not our command. I asked for verification code. None came. The voice repeated, "Stand down." Vargas looked at me and shook his head. Every instinct said we were being dismissed, cut out before we could speak. "We're ghosts now," Haynes muttered. And he was right. Whoever they were, they didn't need us anymore. We loaded what little evidence we had into the remaining Humvee. Folders, photos, field logs, everything we could carry before the fog thickened again. The valley below was washed in gray, the air vibrating faintly with the hum of distant engines. Every instinct screamed that the operation wasn't over, just moving. We followed the mud-slick road down the slope, the truck fishtailing through ruts, the smell of burned diesel still clinging to our clothes. At the base of the ridge, the road forked, one route leading back toward the main highway, the other running parallel to a disused rail spur. Command's last coordinates had mentioned that line. If the tank was meant to move, that's where it would go. I told Haynes to cut the headlights and we rolled slow, engine barely above idle. The radio stayed silent until we reached the tree line near the spur, where the air changed again, denser, electric, like a storm building underground. Then we saw them. Floodlights blinked on through the mist, blinding white against the fog. A freight yard stretched before us, rows of flat cars half hidden beneath tarps. Men moved along the line, maybe 10 of them, working fast and precise. 2 wore reflective vests. The rest carried rifles. On the first flat car sat the stolen Abrams, chained and ready. Behind it, another stripped hull waited, welded and patched like the hybrids we'd seen underground. Vargas leaned forward, voice tight. "They're moving them." I keyed my mic. Visual on target, multiple arm contacts, rail line active. Static answered. Then that same voice came back, calm, cold, final. "Disengage. You are not cleared for further action." I ignored it. The evidence was right there. Haynes swung the Humvee sideways for cover as Vargas loaded the flare gun. "We need visibility," he said, and fired. The flare burst overhead, red smoke spilling through the fog, bright enough to cut the dark in half. The men below froze. One shouted something pointing toward us. Then the tank's engine roared to life, deep and guttural, shaking the ground. "They're starting it," I yelled. Haynes and I jumped from the cab, using the truck as a barricade. We fired 2 shots at the coupler chain between cars. Sparks flew, metal snapped, and the rear cars rolled back, disconnecting. The workers scrambled, some shouting orders, others taking cover. Gunfire erupted, rounds cracking through the air and chewing the gravel around our tires. We ducked low, returning short bursts, counting every shot. The world turned to noise, diesel, gunfire, shouting, and then the tank's main gun rotated, deliberate and smooth. No one was inside. It was remote controlled. "Move!" I screamed. We dove for the embankment as the gun fired. The blast tore the night apart, shockwaves slamming through the valley. The Humvee flipped, fire spitting from its engine block. My ears rang, hearing replaced by a dull ocean of static. I tasted metal, dirt, diesel. Haynes dragged me behind a boulder, his mouth moving but no sound coming out. Through the haze, I saw them, another column rolling from the mine entrance. Armored transports, not tanks, but heavy plated, covered in tarps. A convoy born from the mountain itself. Whoever ran this place had built an army of steel in the dark, and we'd stumbled straight into its launch. The smell of fuel burned thick enough to make breathing feel wrong. I grabbed my headset, static, then clicks again, 3 seconds apart. The same pattern as before. Whoever was controlling the tanks was using our own comms as a trigger link. Vargas's voice broke through, ragged. "I'm alive. North side, eyes on generator." Relief hit quick and passed just as fast. "Kill it," I said. "Kill the power." Haynes and I crawled through the ditch, staying low as tracers cut the air above. The sound of chains and couplers echoed down the line. Someone was still trying to reconnect the train. The tank turret shifted again, tracking movement. Vargas reached the generator shack, sparks bursting as he sliced the main cable. The floodlights flickered, the engine stuttered, and then darkness swallowed the yard. I heard one final transmission. Same voice, measured and cold. "Area under restricted control. Leave immediately." Haynes whispered. "That's not command." But the damage was done. The tank coughed once and went silent. For a few heartbeats, everything was still. Then headlights crested the ridge. Unmarked military transports rolling in formation. They surrounded the yard like they'd been waiting for us. A man stepped out of the lead truck, plain jacket over fatigues, posture too calm for chaos. "You're out of your zone," he said, voice carrying in the fog. "We'll take it from here." His men moved with machine precision, covering the rail cars, securing the tanks, cutting chains. Within minutes, the site looked under control again. I demanded ID, but he only repeated, "Report to your unit. Your task is complete." Haynes stared him down, but lowered his weapon. Vargas stepped from the shadows, eyes hard. "This isn't a recovery," he said. "It's a cover-up." The man didn't answer. He just nodded to his crew and turned away. We watched them load the tanks onto new flatbeds, their floodlights vanishing one by one as fog swallowed the valley. No one spoke as we climbed into the last Humvee and drove. The radio stayed silent the entire ride out. When we reached the highway at dawn, command finally came through. "Mission complete. Recovery confirmed. No further action required." I didn't answer. I just stared at the horizon, where the fog met the ridgeline, and whispered to myself, "No further action." That phrase still echoes when I close my eyes. Even now, when I drive through those mountains and catch that faint whiff of diesel and cold air, I find myself counting the mile markers again, one by one, listening for that soft, patient click on an empty radio channel. Because somewhere out there, beneath the hills and rail lines, someone is still moving armor through the dark. If you've made it this far, you already know some stories don't end when the mission does. What vanished in those mountains wasn't just steel and armor. It was proof. Proof that somewhere beneath our own soil, something is still moving, still building, still listening. If you felt that chill in your chest, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next mission. I'm Captain Rebel, and these are the stories they were never meant to declassify. Stay alert, stay curious, and remember, the signal's still out there.